Hello everyone and welcome to Staying Ahead of the Curve. I'm Jeff Snyder, Vice President, Senior Consultant with Cammack Retirement Group, and today we're talking healthcare. I'm joined by Earle Allen. He's a partner with Cammack Retirement Group and the healthcare practice leader. Earle, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
So healthcare, that's just a broad topic, but there is a lot going on in the healthcare space today.
There is a lot going on in the healthcare space, and it's a real challenge for the hospitals and the health systems today trying to react and respond to the changing legislation. With the national conversation so focused on healthcare and trying to keep costs down as much as possible, it's a real challenge for them to be able to deliver the care that's expected to heal their patients, as well as to remain economically viable. So trying to wade their way through the Obama administration's AHA laws, and now the Trump administration looking to pass their own legislation, and how do they react to that? So really challenging for those institutions to move forward.
And so maintaining a very attractive healthcare plan, retirement plan for a healthcare organization is a very important incentive to attracting and retaining employees.
It is, and there's a lot of movement with employees in healthcare organizations these days. Many are getting towards the age where they're looking to retire and to move on, and there's not a lot of backfill of the employees that can fill those roles and those positions. And there's a lot of movement from one institution to another looking for better compensation or potentially advancement. And so having the retirement plan that can help attract those employees to their institution is a critical part of what they're trying to do.
So I know an area that is really near and dear to your heart is the topic of financial wellness. And I'm wondering, you've been working with several clients on this topic and actually has some really interesting ideas in terms of outreach. So would you mind sharing with the audience your thoughts?
Sure. So financial wellness covers a very broad range of areas. One of the primary ones is related to student debt. And student debt is something that's experienced by all employees throughout all institutions, no matter what their profession. But in healthcare, you have an added layer, because typically the employees must have gone through special schooling or taken certain classes to get designations and credentials that not only qualify them to fulfill their role, but also give them the skill set. And that's just an additional layer of cost that they've got to try to now get out from under as they go forward in their career. So that's one stress that I think you find that healthcare workers have more so than perhaps other industries. Other things such as saving for college for your own kids, for putting aside money for your retirement plan, just simple budgeting. All of those areas fall into this category of financial wellness, and we're seeing more healthcare institutions trying to find ways to help alleviate some of the stress that those different categories cause.
And let's not forget the cost of healthcare for healthcare workers in retirement is exorbitant.
Well, exactly, and it is for all workers, and that's sort of the next thing to set aside. Is we've set aside money for retirement, we've set aside money for our college tuition, we also have to set aside money for our own health needs down the road.
So in terms of financial wellness, I know another area that you're very passionate about is the data mining, the segmentation, the targeting, and the communications, and coming up with very inventive and innovative ways to reach people. Share with the audience what you're doing in some of the healthcare systems you're working with.
So we do a lot of evaluation of the data, how participants are using their investments when they're getting engaged in the program, and what they do once they've moved on to their next organization. Are they rolling the money over? Are they leaving it there? What are they doing when they retire? So we try to identify these different types of behavior from the participants, and then work with the plan sponsor to implement communication programs that will help educate those participants about how best to follow through with their behavior. And it's also involving looking at the different investment options offered in the plan. What are the ones that are going to be best tailored to the needs and the behavior that's been exhibited by their participants?
And so you're segmenting, you're targeting. That's obviously very important, but you've got to have a multimedia type of strategy. So it's not only technology that you're using, but it also could be boots on the ground. It could be people on the ground, financial advisors, working with the record keeper, the third-party administrator, to bring people into the program.
Absolutely, and that's a key component of it, because people learn in different ways. Some of them are very content to look at information on the internet, maybe listen to a podcast, and get the information they're looking for. Others aren't going to react that way. They want print material, they want to meet with somebody one-on-one, face-to-face. Maybe they can bring their spouse or significant other that they can have that conversation and better tailor the plan that's going to work for them. And so finding the strategy that works best with the record keeper, with the plan sponsor, and working to put all these pieces together, giving a very broad-based media strategy to reach out to the participants.
How important are fees to the clients with whom you're working?
They're extremely important. I mean, they're important on many different levels. On the first level, it's obviously they want to have the plan that's going to be provide the most of their participants at the least cost, both from a perspective of keeping the cost down for the participant, because that has such a big impact on their long-term retirement account accumulation. But in addition, they're concerned about what's going on in the public with the lawsuits that have been filed. They want to make sure that they are being careful and consciously making good decisions about their programs with the fees that are associated with them, looking at them very carefully on at least an annual basis, benchmarking, making sure that their program, again, is competitive and it's reasonable from a fee perspective.
So in terms of fees, we're talking third-party administrator, the record keeper, but we're also talking investments. And many of those lawsuits that you mentioned are around share class determination, right?
Exactly right. And that it's been a big element of the lawsuits that have been put out there. As plan committees come together to look at the different investment options that they offer and look at what those associated fees are, we try to have the conversation about what other share classes are available if they're wedded to those particular funds, so they can find the least cost that's going to deliver the benefit to their employees. It makes a huge impact on the employee's overall account balance, and again, it's something that is being closely scrutinized out there in the public.
As is the distribution of those fees to, is it equitable, is it fair?
A lot of the investments have different levels of fees built into them to help cover the cost of record keeping or audits and advisory work and things like that. But it's not necessarily distributed equally amongst participants. There's been a lot more conversation that we've been having with our plan committees about really examining how are participants paying for the plan, because most of them are paying for it through the investments. Sometimes the plan sponsor wants to write the check directly themselves, and that's a very equitable way to do it, but a lot of times it's spread through the participants, so finding the way that the participants can contribute a proportionate share of the overall cost is one of the strategies that we're seeing very popular today.
Shifting gears, one of the key elements of every retirement plan is the fixed or capital preservation account. I know you've dealt with this particular investment with several of your clients. Can you share some of the trends you're seeing with respect to this investment?
Well, we're seeing, there's still a lot of the traditional guaranteed interest account, because in the healthcare space particularly, it seems that it's a very popular investment. Throughout not-for-profits in general, and even some for-profits, but in healthcare we see a very high portion of assets contributed towards the safest investment option, the guaranteed account. Sometimes it pays a rate that's guaranteed with a minimum floor. Sometimes it's can't go below zero, but it's not necessarily going to give them, it's not as if there's a minimum 1%, 2% or whatever. But the plan committees are looking at this very closely as well, because they recognize how important it is to their participants. They're seeing so much of the assets flow into that account, and they want to make sure that what they've got is both, it's providing a good interest rate, it's got the backing of a strong financial organization to protect the assets that are included in there, and that the communication is going out to participants about how best to use it. Because it's probably not the right investment for somebody in their 20s to put all of their money there for their entire career. Again, we look at participant behavior and see how people are using it. If they're focused on just that account for their entire career, they may not accumulate enough assets to retire in the way they might want to. So that, again, is something that we data mine to find examples of maybe some individuals that could benefit from some targeted communication and education initiatives.
And let's not forget, we're in a rising rate environment, so making sure that the manager can tactically adjust his or her portfolio to deal with that rate increase.
Exactly right. We've been examining, getting under the hood and really examining what they're putting into these stable value accounts, looking at the duration of the investments to get an understanding of how they're going to react as the markets change with the interest rate environment.
So today is May 26th, and I can't go without talking about the fiduciary rule. And I wonder if you might talk a little bit about the fiduciary rule, because we got some signal from the Department of Labor that they're not going to delay anymore, and want to get your thoughts. The importance of, you're a fiduciary of the program as an advisor and as a plan sponsor, but also those people in the field are fiduciaries, and they've got to act in the best interest of participants.
They do, and it seems like the Department of Labor's latest indication is that they are going to move forward with the rule. It's going to become effective June 9th. The indication is that full-on enforcement won't happen until the end of the year, so that does give some people a little bit more time to get their house in order. A lot of it is making sure that they're living up to impartial conduct standards. The information, the advice that they're providing needs to be in the best interest of the participant. That's primary focus. But it also has to be for a reasonable cost, and they can't use any misleading statements. In general, those three topics shouldn't be that difficult for an advisor to be able to meet, and that's all that they're really going to need to meet from now until the end of the year. But as they move forward, they should be making sure they've got everything in line, because as come January 1st, that is supposed to be full-on implementation with the best interest contract exemptions if they need them.
And one of the areas of focus I know of the Government Accountability Office and regulators for that matter is leakage. So we have people coming out of these retirement plans moving into very expensive products. That was really one of the areas that Department of Labor wanted to target with these rules.
It was the driving force, I want to say, because there were so many participants who would leave their retirement plan where they might be getting institutional rates on their fees and having a lower cost, moving into an IRA and incurring much higher costs and not necessarily getting services that were commensurate with those higher fees. And so this rule was put in place to try to prevent that situation from occurring, so that whenever somebody's transitioning from a retirement plan to an IRA, it is in their best interest, and they are going to get the services that are commensurate with the fees that are going to be charged.
Earle, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on today's show.
Thank you for having me.